All right. Hangout on the air is live.
Yay, live hangouts. Woohoo.
Let's see what happens when.
Let the craziness begin.
So I've got the on-call phone this week at my work, and it's one of these crummy old flip phones that you only see with people who are on call.
Right.
And we had this leather carrying case that I broke. Was getting into a car and snapped the thing off. So I had to replace it. You would not believe how hard it is to find these. I mean, you used to be able to pick them up at every 7-Eleven, but not anymore. Amazon to the rescue, but still, even at the great Amazon, there were two choices.
Wow.
But
that's pretty crazy.
Thanks to Amazon Prime, it arrived today. And so when I hand it off to somebody tomorrow, it'll be back in a case.
Woohoo!
Wow.
All right, that audio sounds fine.
How am I sounding to y'all? Am I breaking up or?
No, you sound great.
No, you sound
cool.
Mark, you're getting a little Cylon-y every once in a while.
Really? Does it sound like that to you, Seth?
A little bit, yeah.
Well, I happen to know for a fact that the kids are watching YouTube upstairs, but that will be stopping very soon.
Oh, yeah, I had to launch Audacity. Sorry, forgot about that.
I did too.
So we probably should have done this before I started recording to pretend that we actually know something. But this show is going to be a general sort of discussion about modern finances, right? Modern banking, that kind of thing. I've titled it "It's the Future," and we don't have any particular thing, but to kick off Financial February, we're just going to be talking about sort of the modern state of banking and finances in general. So that's what it is. And
that works.
I figure we don't need any more than that to have a 90-minute discussion. That one description right there would be plenty for us to BS for an hour and a half.
I'm sure it will be. All right. I'm starting my recording now. Ta-da!
Oh. I am recording now as well.
Fixed.
You got what fixed? I heard
that ground loop.
Oh, yeah. I don't hear the hum. I didn't even notice. I had just gotten so used to it.
Yes, I spent a good couple of hours the other day rerunning cable and making sure that nothing was touching that shouldn't be touching and grounded that needed to be grounded. And yes, doesn't mean it won't come back, but at the moment I have it squished.
Yeah, I had a custom filter set up in Audacity to get rid of that for you. It was so consistent. It always sounded the same.
Mm-hmm. One of those lovely ground loops.
Yay, progress. We're less sucky than before.
It ended up being a cable.
Yes. It always
from the microphone to the over there to the tower. I had to actually lay another cable over top of it and then have that cable grounded for it to kill it.
So it's the same cable. You didn't replace the cable.
No, I did. I replaced the cable, and it's still stuck. I ran a ground, like a little bare wire over it into the ground of into the outlet, and that.
Okay.
It's some sort of, I don't know.
You created your own canceling circuit.
I did.
Nice. Basic Physics 101. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Gotta love it.
I had one of those recently. I can't remember what it was, but it was like after 5 years of doing this, I'd been doing this thing wrong all that time, and I fixed it. I was like, oh, well, that was easy. And I can't remember now what it was, but I had been doing it wrong for 5 years.
Yeah, and I installed some lamps or some light fixtures in my parents' kitchen. I could have done that 10 years ago. I don't know why I didn't. I was like, well, that took 5 minutes each. So I wonder how many. Is it a dying art that we can do stuff like that? How many people know how to do that and are confident enough to just, yeah, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to cut that wire, I'm going to wing tie those off, and then drill these holes, and I'm done.
I think people are too afraid. We've created a culture of people who are afraid to try things.
Right.
Mhm.
Wow, we should be recording this. Actually,
I think we are.
I am recording it, but I hadn't done an intro. I don't know how I'm going to work it in, but
that was for our Patreon
there
subscribers.
you go.
Ooh, we haven't done anything special for them in a while.
We haven't. For the enterprising YouTuber, let's see, that reminds me, I should go to the chat room and let the two zombies who are always there know that the live stream is up. Let's see who's there. Yeah, the two people there are me. So guess there's no reason to do that. Okay, let's do some podcaster rating. That sounds like you're cutting parts off of a podcast.
Podcastification.
Okay.
Ooh.
That sounds almost nasty.
There's on the Maximum Fun Network, there's a show called Stop Podcasting Yourself. I don't know what it's about. It's a great title, though. Okay.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the GeekRant show. That was terrible. I don't have any way to follow that, so I'm going to start over again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to GeekRant, episode 215. It's the future, recorded January 31st, 2016, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions, elementopie.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show where we let our geek flag fly. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, are your stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Father. God, man, I was so proud of myself for making that geek flag fly so smooth that
and
I got
for posterity, this
Yeah.
is 225, not 215.
Yeah, see, I was like, I had done the one thing right, and I was so busy mentally patting myself on the back for doing it right that I messed up everything else. So, take 3. YouTube audience, only you get the benefit of this. So, kudos to you for being the one of, I don't know, half a dozen people in a millennium who watches this. One more time. Hello, everyone, and welcome to GeekRant, episode 225. It's the future, recorded January 31st, 2016, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions, elementopie.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the show where we get our geek on. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, are your two stalwart co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather Neves, and Seth, the Gooey Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the craziness that is GeekRant.
And I would like to say hello to all of you fine folks listening to us this week. Welcome to GeekRant.
The funny thing is that sounds perfectly normal to me, Seth.
Sorry, it just, man, I can't get out of it now. I opened my mouth and it came out. So
I grew up a redneck surrounded by rednecks, and I didn't even know, even among rednecks, I was redneck. I remember when I was like 6 years old, older than that, maybe 6th grade, I was talking about something, and it was really large. And the way you say really large in redneckese is, that was a great big old dog. So I called it a great big O, and one of my classmates said, "What?" I said, "Great big old dog." A what big dog? And so then I realized that even among geeks, among rednecks, I was even more redneck. So it was somewhere around there, 11, 12 years old, that I started gradually losing the accent. And then in college, in earnest, when I took a voice and phonetics class and realized that if I were going to have a professional career in speaking, I could not sound like my mom. So, but
Right.
when you dropped into it, Seth, it was like, oh, I'm back home.
Welcome to East Texas, y'all.
And when my mom comes over, the kids sometimes literally don't understand her. They have to ask her, what was that? Because in fact, not only have we raised them to speak, as non-dialectically as possible, but also I actively make fun of them for for displaying their Southern roots. I probably shouldn't do that, but it's important. No matter what you actually think, no matter how advanced we really are in this world, people judge you by the way you sound, and the universal American stereotype is that if you sound like a Southerner, you're dumb. It's just a fact of life.
That's what everyone thinks.
Southern and hick, and unfortunately, there is a large body of evidence to prove that those are almost mutually inclusive terms, but there is some distinction between Southern and hick. You can be Southern without being a hick, but I don't know if you can be a hick if you're not Southern. So.
Right. And the fact that we have Mission Control and Tandy and Texas Instruments and EDI, those things don't matter. Raytheon, if you're from the South, you're an idiot. Wow, we really got off on that one. It's totally unfair, but it's also totally true. It's one of the last few things where it's politically safe to make a snap judgment.
Is it really? Or would we get fired over it?
Oh no, it's perfectly okay to think somebody's dumb if they sound like they're from the South. It's okay. It's expected. If somebody comes at you with a South Boston accent, then you have a certain, you immediately assume that they're unsophisticated and, Jersey Shore trash, and that's not even the right region, but that's the idea based on the way you speak. It's Goodwill Hunting territory.
Right.
Humans are good at classifying things. We will make patterns and put things in classifications, even if it doesn't belong there, but it makes us feel better.
No, we're good at judging. We're not necessarily good at classifying. So we can judge that person, but whether it's an accurate distinction, maybe not.
That's a good point. As long as we feel good about it. And right. Seth, I want to say I feel good about you having finished the first of your 12 5K races in 2016. Congratulations, buddy. That's nice. You good on you.
Well, thank you. I was it's called the Hypnotic Donut Dash, and I was proud of myself. I did not stop for donut holes anywhere along the way, mainly because the line was too long and I didn't want to stop. But I had some at the end, so that was cool. But yeah, my time was like about 45 minutes, and there was a mile marker at mile 1. And I was like, okay. So I kept looking for mile 2. I never saw mile 2 or mile 3. I round this last little corner, and there's a finish line. And so I was going to try to run further. I was going to run from 3 to the finish because I did walked, ran. But I was going to run from 3 to the finish. I could have done better. Howard. But so anyway, yeah, it's set a very, I guess, high bar that I can go under for the next race. Probably like I could do that this week, but with another month of training, then I can break 40. So my goal is to get better every time.
Rather than going with the high jump metaphor, you went straight to the limbo metaphor. So that's great.
Well, no, I want to lower the time. So see, I want it to go from 45. I want it to go lower. So.
Oh, okay.
And inspired by you, he hasn't been here to tell you this, but he won't mind me telling you. Inspired by you, Aaron also ran the first of his 12 5Ks this year. Our former host, Aaron Butler.
Yeah.
So he did the one I was actually considering joining you. I really was. It was the Frozen 5K here, and it was 75 and sunny here, but it's still called the Frozen 5K because typically in January it is kind of cold. Last week it was snowing. I mean, it's southern snow, right? But it was still snow. Yesterday, 7 days after it was snowing, I took my kids to the park and we sat outside in the sun because it was so beautiful. And we actually had the air conditioner on in the car on the way home because we got worked up a sweat at the park.
The only reason I didn't turn on the air conditioner was I refused to run the AC in January.
just for a principle thing, huh?
But I really needed it though. But I refused to. I was like, this is January. I'm not turning on the air conditioner.
Just roll the windows down. You'll be all right.
That's what I did.
And after we went to the park, I took my kids to see the latest installment of Kung Fu Panda. And I will say this, if you liked the first two, you will like the third one. I did like the first two, and I do like the third one. I really enjoyed it immensely. and all the charm, all the good-hearted, family friendly, feel goodness of the first two. I don't think it was as charming as the second one. I really think the second one is the best of the bunch, but it was really good, worth seeing. So 2 enthusiastic thumbs up for a family movie that you can go see and actually, see some real family values on display. Plus,
Cool.
Plus you get to see a panda get kicked in the nuts. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Well,
Maybe
that should
the
make it all
panda?
better then.
Yeah, the panda doesn't like that. That's one of the running themes, though. I will say, it's been several years. I can't. If only there was some database of movies, perhaps on the internet, some sort of internet movie database, if you will, where I could look this up. But I know it's been several years, 5 or 6 between 2 and 3, and Dustin Hoffman forgot the voice of Sifu in between there, and he was totally doing the Mr. Megorian voice. And it was noticeably different to me. Nobody else seemed to notice. I asked my family about it, and no, it's fine. He looks like a red panda. It must be the same, but his voice was completely different. He was not doing the Sifu voice. He was doing the Mr. Megorian voice. Because I guess he didn't go back and listen to his own work. I think about that. I listen to lots of audiobooks, and these guys are doing 6 books over 5 years. Do they have to go back and listen to the voice that they did for this character? Because the really good ones, you know who it is before they say, because the character, the performer has a voice for that character. And as soon as they speak, you know which character it is before you get to the end of sentence and it says Ponder said this. I just wonder if they have to go back and listen to their own works. Do they make notes? Do they record sentences set as that character? How they do that? That would be an interesting thing to find out.
See, they cut the scene out where it talked about him having a cold and he just didn't quite sound the same. And when they do the extended version DVD special release,
all will be clear.
Yeah, it'll be clear. So all of that you got worked up because they cut a scene from the movie, Mark.
That could be.
There it is.
Most of the time when I go back and watch deleted scenes on DVDs, I know why they deleted them. Most of the time that's the case.
True. Yeah, that's usually how that works.
And then sometimes, like in the case of Johnny Mnemonic, as I understand it, that movie was supposed to be a dramatic powerhouse of a movie. And in fact, Dolph Lundgren was hoping it would launch his dramatic career. And all but like 30 seconds of his performance is on the editing room floor, and you ended up with a real mess of a movie.
That is true. That movie was shredded, in my opinion. Decent movie, though, still. I still like going back and watching it.
I mean, yeah, but when is that Ice-T or Ice Cube? I can't remember which one that is.
I don't know.
But when he's Ice Cube, when he is when he wins the role for best portrayal on screen in a particular film, you're in some highbrow territory.
Yeah. Interestingly, I listened to a podcast recently, the Nerdist podcast. They had Jason Alexander from Seinfeld.
Right.
His character, George Costanza, who was also in Pretty Woman. He was talking about Pretty Woman, and he said that all the actors on the stage, on the set, thought they were making a gritty sort of film noir. That's what the script was. That's what they thought they were doing. And then Gary Marshall, when he got into the editing room, made it the romantic comedy that it was. That none of the people, when they went to the premiere and they saw it, they were like, "Is this the movie we made?"
Really?
It was fascinating. The scene, if you remember it, where he's holding Richard Gere's holding a necklace out, and she reaches for it, and he closes the thing on her hand, and she pulls away. That was an outtake. They didn't even think the camera was rolling. And Gary Marshall kept it and put it in the movie. So editing makes all the difference.
Well, that's a good thing. That you can see movies that have been well edited and then movies that have been butchered.
Yeah, there was a movie, and it had Kate Hudson and I think Owen Wilson and some other Matt somebody, and it was done as a comedy, and they did a trailer, all the same footage, and they cut out and made a trailer, and they portrayed it as a horror movie, and it totally worked because they edited them out. So yeah, editing can save or butcher, and it can make an average film great. It can make a great film crap. It can make a crappy film enjoyable.
Yeah, From what I hear and what I read, Empire Strikes Back was the great movie that it was because of editing. That was not what was shot. So good stuff. I love that we get on tangents like this. There is somebody right now yelling at the podcast player saying, what are you doing here? Look, we're up front. GeekRant. We are geeks and we are ranting about movies. What are you expecting? Seriously. Something about Linux? No, this is not the show for that.
Well, but we can every once in a while bring some Linux in.
Sure, because somebody's setting off fireworks. Nice. So if you hear an explosion, it's I'm not in any danger. My neighbors just had some left over from New Year's. So Seth, at this time last week, you were recording on a Windows Surface tablet, which did a yeoman's job, I might add.
Not a Surface, just a little
just a
cheap
tablet. Okay.
Yeah.
But you were doing back tonight on your regular hardware.
That is correct, because it was the hard drive, but I had to trick my computer by putting a different hard drive in, booting up SpinRite, and then with the power on, swapping out the hard drives before having SpinRite detect it so it could detect and repair this hard drive. So, yay, I'm still smarter than the computer, but I had to think about it this time. So I don't know, maybe the singularity's still a little ways off, but it's getting closer.
Were these SSDs or spinning disks?
SSDs.
Okay, because I didn't know you could hot swap a spinning disk. I guess if the enclosure supports it.
Well, I mean, I basically had the back open when I did it, and it was before, I hadn't launched the operating system. I had just turned the computer on, so it wasn't like I didn't have a Windows session running. It was just power to the device, and SpinRite fixed it. Thank you, Steve Gibson.
I was showing off for somebody once, my server room at my old job, and I was talking about how I had RAID 6 hot swappable drives, and I was like, so the way this works, and I went to a non-mission critical because when you pop a drive out of a RAID, it still works, but it degrades the performance considerably. So I didn't want to do that on a main one. So I went to one of the servers and I pop the disk out. I was going to say, you see, because this is RAID and it's hot swappable, I can pull this out and plug it back in and it won't cause any problems. What I didn't know, apparently, was that one disk was already bad. So when I popped the last good one out, the whole thing came crashing down, and I ended up rebuilding a server because I was showing off. Moral of that story, don't show off. Right. Second moral of that story, pay attention to your logs, because it had been telling me for months that there was a problem, but I had never bothered to look at the logs.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the point of logs, that no one ever reads.
Exactly. So Chris, you're using we had talked a little before about you putting some new hardware between you and the rest of the world. How's that going for you?
So for those that didn't know, I was running pfSense and ran pfSense for a long time, but I was looking at I needed something a little newer with the more updated plugins. So I ran into OpenSUSE, or OpenSense, not OpenSUSE, but OpenSense, still based on the pfSense idea, but now it's on one of the branches, and I'm very impressed with it. I've actually seen a higher streamable now that I have in this newer version of pfSense, and the way it hands off things a lot better than the old pfSense box did, even with caching and everything turned on. So I'm impressed. We're able to do what was it? We did 12 consecutive streams of Hulu or Netflix without the network crashing out. For my area, that's pretty impressive for 12 HD streaming sessions.
Well, I didn't know you could even do that with that many sessions. How many Netflix sessions did you have?
It wasn't all Netflix.
Oh, okay.
We had all the Roku's running Netflix, all the phones running either Hulu or Netflix HD.
Okay.
So were you trying to exceed your bandwidth in an hour?
I was figuring if I'm going to pay for it, I might as well test it correctly and see what happens if all of us are being stupid at the same time.
And so your next bill is going to be roughly $750?
I hope not, because no, because I did it at the end of a month when we were under that month, so we're actually not going to have any overages until I did that.
So you made sure that you would.
Yeah, pretty much.
So
But it was still pretty cool to say that I did 12 HD streams without any hardware, breaking itself or boiling itself off the wall.
What are you running it on? What hardware?
The PF Sense is running on a Pentium 4 with what is it? It's just a single core with hyperthreading and 4 gigs of RAM.
Considering most home and even small business devices run on 386s or even ARM processors, you had cycles to spare doing all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I always find funny when I talk to my friends that aren't in the tech world and they're all whining because they can't stream more than 2 devices at once, and I go, well, look what you're running it through.
Yeah.
That's about the same speed as a calculator.
Right.
So when they come over here and see what I do, they're like, oh, maybe I should build one.
Yeah, my problem in my particular house, it just the construction of the house more than the equipment is Wi-Fi. Running Wi-Fi, I get 1/10 if I'm lucky the performance of wired, just because the house is apparently built to honor Zool.
You didn't know that was an NSA safe house, and they built a Faraday cage around every room. Did you?
Yes. You walk in.
See?
You walk into my kitchen with 4 bars of 4G. As soon as you cross the threshold, you got nothing. Just gone.
That's what it's like in my house.
Yeah.
If I walk down the stairs to go to my basement, you walk 4 steps, forget it. Your call's dropped.
Well, basement, that makes sense. You're underground, but
it's 4 steps. I mean, technically, you're still above ground level when at 4 steps.
Okay.
Technically, but
but you're surrounded by lots of plumbing and concrete. So, Seth, now that you have some major money coming to you from the Holla Foundation, are you gonna go out and buy another tablet?
Well, I mean, I already have 5 tablets, so I was looking at that and I was like, I have way too much crap to go buy another crappy tablet. But no, so Holla, we reported on the story that they were going to do something. They were shipping out something like 121 units to some of their early pre-order people, and they were going to be doing something special. Well, it looks like that something special is a refund for the tablet. So I will be getting some money back, which will be cool. I can use it, just to waste on other crap. But yeah.
But they seem to be doing it right. They're promising your purchase price plus shipping, all the money that you paid in, you're going to get back over the next year. Yeah,
maybe. So, yeah, they're setting up to do that if they can. Which, I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't mind getting. If they could send me a rooted tablet with those specs, I would be happy. But or give me my money back. Either one, I'm happy. So, I mean, they proved they're no son of Migo. If something like no money can kill them off, so they deserve to die for not living up to the Migo zombification.
Yeah, it's a great lesson for anybody who wants to go into microfinancing, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, that kind of thing. Learn this story and learn it well, because this could be you. They had good ideas, but they didn't know how to manage the money that they had. And they go into details about it, but not great details, but some detail anyway.
Yeah, and you did such a good job of transition. I should point out this link will be in our show notes for people to go through and read the entry from the Holla blog.
Oh yeah, that was the first news story of the week. Yeah, sorry. I'm just looking at the headline of this one, this news, Ars Technica. It's just never going to end. We've talked about Cisco being in trouble, and then Fortinet being in trouble, and then I forgot who the other one was. Now, if you have a smart TV device, there's a good chance that that's going to be hackable too.
Yes, so this is a company, AMX. They supply AV and building control equipment to such customers as the United States Army, the White House, and other security-conscious organization. Well, they shipped in there's a function, and this is the name of the function within their code base. Set up subtle user account. And then basically you can make this account godlike, and it can pwn this device. And you think, well, it's only AV, it doesn't control internet, but it is connected to your either computer or your network, and it can give you access. It can give someone access to that segment of the network. So, and again, this is one of the companies that did a stupid thing. They released an update saying, hey, we heard you. Here's an update. It fixes the problem. What they meant by fix was change the username and password of the function, not remove it. And then they do this customer release, and they basically say, y'all are blowing this out of proportion. We're a good company. Still buy our stuff because we think you're too stupid to handle the truth. That's kind of my paraphrasing of what their representative had to say. You can go to the Ars Technica article and see. But yeah, so, basically over just the last month, there's been Cisco, Juniper, Fortinet, Linux, so for people who are going to roll their own, and now even non-router things such as AV unit controllers are in there. So yeah, if you have any connection to the internet, you're pwned.
The fact is, this all stems from the fact that geeks are lazy. We are a lazy breed of human, and it's so much easier to just remote into a device and work on it than it is to actually contact a user and get them to share a session with you and do what you need to do. So all of these things that we've talked about are admin backdoors put in to make their lives easier. And they're lazy and they think, oh, that's fine. As long as
no one gets that password.
If the password is I'm Batman, surely nobody's ever going to type it into the console, so we're fine. And it's just stop. It's the dual-edged sword of this personality type. Because we are lazy, we often find the best ways to do things. My uncle used to say to me that if you pointed out two men, one who was industrious and hardworking and one who was lazy, and asked and said you need to pick one of these guys to solve a problem, he would take the lazy one every time. Because the lazy guy is going to figure out the fastest, easiest way to do it, where the industrious guy is just going to throw hard work at it. And if you're a business owner and you're trying to solve a problem quickly and cheaply, throwing hard work at it isn't the solution. So
right.
I've taken that all these years later as an idea of there's value in hard work, but laziness also has great power. But with great power, as Stan Lee says, comes great responsibility.
Well, see, there's working harder physically and there's working smarter mentally. The problem is you have an entrepreneurial type, overachieving type A start a company guy who's going. He goes to bed at 4 a.m. and wakes up at 2 a.m. the night before and is on caffeine and, guava juice and whatever. And then he hires a technician who is working at his computer but is in the same spot 4 hours later. That guy's going to fire him because he's not doing anything. Anyway, and the thing about this, it's part of what you said, but it's also management saying, hey, can we do this? And somebody says yes, and then somebody else says, but that's a security issue, and the management says, I don't think I heard you because we would fire anyone who rocks the boat 2 days before product launch. So, unfortunately, there's lots of levels of incompetence in a situation like this, from the lazy programmer to the overactive manager to the bean counter who doesn't know anything about technology. The people who know can't rock the boat and keep their job, and that's part of it as well. So you have all of these things throwing out, is this possible? Let's do it, and we'll worry about the implications later. We did it. It's too late to worry about the implications.
Which ties in nicely to the topic of our discussion tonight. It's kicking off what Seth has dubbed Financial February. We're going to be talking about finances and money and not just investment, that sort of thing, but buying stuff, trading something of value for something else of value in the modern age. And so we're going to kick that off tonight with, Seth led us right into it. We're in a world where we're trying to electronicize everything. And banks are jumping into this, and banks are often making poor choices about their security because they're just trying to see, can we do it? Can we make it happen? And security takes a backseat. But users are even more vulnerable to that. If your bank password is the same as any other password, stop recording right now and go change. Well, actually, all of them, but certainly the bank one. So we're going to talk about just basic overview how we do finances in the future. That's the title of the show. It's the future. You shouldn't be balancing a checkbook on paper in the little ledger on the back of your checkbook. That's what I think anyway. These two guys may both do that, but I think if you're doing that, you're not living in the future. You're living in the 50s
or lower.
Well, I don't know. I have to disagree with you a little bit.
I knew you would.
But see, here's the thing. We've had this discussion before about the guy at McDonald's. Something costs $1.07, and you give them $1.12, and they have to get their manager to make change because they don't know that 12 minus 7 is 5, and you get a nickel back. So
whoa, you just did that in your head, like whoa.
So I balance my checkbook by hand, and then I check it with the calculator because I don't want to lose the ability to do basic math type stuff. And so
I totally respect that, but I only write a check to the lawn guy because he doesn't take electronic payments. My total check writing in the course of a year is like 9. So there's no point in me balancing my checkbook.
I write 12 checks, one for the tithe every month. All the other entries in my ledger are things I do electronically. I do them electronically, but I also balance it by hand just to, keep those synapses firing in my neural pathways.
That's the justification you use, Seth. In fact, you're hoping to catch the bank in an error. That's the reason you're doing it.
No, I want to know how much money I have because I don't want to.
Well, you log onto your bank account and you see what the number is. That's how you know how much money you have.
Well, I don't know. I've never caught the bank in an error. I've caught myself in many an error.
So then you just made my point for me. Why do the math when you can look online and see your available balance?
I want to know how to do the math.
Okay,
this is
fair
a
enough.
discussion we had beforehand. I know how to fix stuff in my house. I know how to turn off the power switch and take a light fixture off the ceiling and hang another one. I know how to do that. I've done it before. I don't want to forget how to do something like that. So it's worth it for me to take the extra steps to do it by hand to make sure I can remember it.
Fair enough. So let's talk about banking in the modern era. So just a round robin, Chris, how do you bank?
Actually, me and the wife use a little bit. Actually, we're kind of a mixture of both, you and Seth, there for how we do things. We do electronic payments for just about everything we can, except for the stuff that she physically wants to hand somebody a check to because she's annoyed with them. Or at least, and that's for me especially. If I'm annoyed with you, I'm going to write you a check because I want to hand you something physically and have that look of, now don't you feel stupid, instead of being able to swipe a card. For the same fact, though, we do a lot of cash transactions because for the places that we like, so they don't have to pay the credit card or debit fee for them to run the card. So it's kind of an interesting spin on both of you guys. But we both me and the wife, have a shared spreadsheet that we do all our budgeting on in checkbook writing, for the simple fact that it's a whole lot easier to make a change in a Google Sheet than it is to make a change on a piece of paper.
Yeah, 22 almost years ago now, 1994, actually just over 21, when my wife and I got married. Even before that, before we were married, we opened a joint account and started spending our money together even when we were just engaged. And we used to sit down once a month, because we both got paid once a month, and we would sit down with a stack of bills and a checkbook and a paper budget. And the process would take 2 hours on average, sometimes more, sometimes less. And you'd run the numbers, and then so we'd run the numbers all on the paper on the budget, and then see if we could pay all the bills. Sad to say, that's what it was. And some of those bills got shuffled over into the how mad are they at us category.
Yep.
And what I discovered over time was that a lot of the way we were doing it was not just because the fact that we were running out of money before we ran out of bills was part and parcel of the fact that we were doing everything on paper. It's too error prone. And we weren't managing our money well. So I digitized the whole thing and created an Excel spreadsheet because I do love me some spreadsheets. And I had a macro every month. You click new month, and it would create a new sheet, copy over all the static. Like, we knew that our car payment was going to be the same every month. We knew that the electric bill would be in a range every month. So it would just do all that math for us, and then we'd go through and do all that. And so we did that for a long time until electronic banking came along, and now we don't do any of it. Just over time, we have completely fallen away to we know how much money is in the bank. We know how much our bills are. And I look online at any one moment and say, this is how much money we have. This is how much we have outstanding against that, because any good bank will show you bills coming out over the next time. I've got this much coming in. And so all of that happens as a snapshot on the online system at any one time. And that works for us. Of course, it's very important there that you have enough money to cover all your bills to be able to make that happen.
Oh, yes.
Right.
When people, around payday, when people are saying, I really need payday to happen, I don't have any money, that to me that says you're not budgeting properly, because you should never do that. You particularly if you're on salary, or even if you're not on salary, most people make pretty close to the same amount of money in every pay period, whether it's once a week or once a month. And if you're getting to the end of your pay period and you don't have enough money, or you're not sure you're going to be able to pay a bill, you're doing it wrong. Plain and simple.
Well, the only thing that comes up then, though, that's one of the things that me and my wife are striving for, is to be able to look at the paydays and go, yeah, we have X money left over, and we're getting closer. But my family is also still digging out from our long strudge through. But what's interesting, though, is when you see sites like, I don't know if you got, we're jumping down a little bit in the list, but I just put one in there. Have you guys ever heard of anything called Acorns? The app or application that what it does is it when you put in, say you went to the coffee shop and swiped for $1.25, it'll round it up to the $2 and invest that 75 cents.
Automatically? So you're paying with their credit card?
I'm not sure if you're paying with their credit card or if it's something that they're doing automatically in the background because you've tied that card to their account so they can see the transactions. But I thought it was an interesting concept, and it's something I've always tried to do. But since before now, it was almost impossible to do because if you round up your checkbook, you just realize, oh, I still have a little bit of extra money left over, and it's not being invested. I always thought that would be a really great idea, and it looks like that company has figured out a way to do it. And I have yet to sign up for it because the wife doesn't want to do it, but it's an interesting idea.
Does it work with credit cards or just debit cards?
I honestly haven't put enough time into it to tell you for sure. It's just a really interesting. When I first saw the advertisement for it, I was like, well, that sounds like something I was talking about years ago. And then I went and kind of just casually looked over the app a little bit and went, oh, that's kind of cool. So it gives you a nice little dashboard of the money that you've put in and how it's if it's investing correctly, or it's an interesting thing to look at.
And they charge $1 a month or 0.25% per year, whichever is greater.
Right.
So very reasonable. I mean, they need their VIG, makes sense. But if you're a student or under 24, no cost. Neat idea.
Yeah, very neat idea. Something I've always thought it would be an awesome idea for people that are, that they're secure enough financially that it doesn't seem that it wouldn't hurt them for being out that change.
It's the change jar. right? If you
Yeah.
deal with cash, at the end of the day, you bring your change in and you put it in a jar. At the end of the year, you take the jar, you take it to the bank, and you got a couple $100 extra. Well, they're doing that change jar model, but they're investing it for you. Micro investments, literally pennies a day of investments. I think it's a good idea. I'm going to have to do some research on the company. This is the first I've ever heard of it, but I really like the idea.
Yeah,
It-
it invests in ETFs, so those are low cost things for you, and you can also add lump sum. So if you want to like start off with, if you could do $1,000 or 100, and then have your change go to it, I most I'm on their website now as y'all are talking, but there's lots of things that will do this. Like a lot of your banks will do this with your debit card. They'll round up and put it in a savings account for you. But if this is something that I could round up my credit card purchases, I would totally be all over that, because one of the ways I game the system is I put everything I can on my credit card and I leave that money in my checking account, which earns interest, but not as much as it used to, because nothing pays interest today, basically.
Oh gosh, I keep expecting to
and
get a bill from my bank.
Actually, the Bank of Japan charges you now. They did this last week. They charge you 0.1% on money you put with them. So you do better to put your money out in the business making money. But yeah, and then so I pay off that account every month and I get my 1% cash back on that. So I would love to be able to round up my credit card purchases.
I'm not
That'd be
sure if it's
awesome.
legal to invest with credit funds though. That in that way, like credit card fund. I know there's a leveraged investment where people borrow money to invest, but I'm not sure you can do it with a credit card. I'd have to find out.
It would not be
Again,
illegal, but it might be against the policy of places, because if I wanted to use a cash advance on my credit card and say I wanted to do $10,000, and then I get this check for $10,000, I can take that to an investment place and say I want to invest $10,000. They don't ask, did you do a cash advance to get
Right.
this?
That's a leveraged investment, and that's legal
Right.
because you're the intermediary making the choice. I don't
Right.
think that they can pull money straight from a credit card company, but I'm nowhere near an expert.
yeah, it's just an interesting site. I ran across it, about a month ago. Since we're talking about internet banking
Yeah,
this month, I
absolutely.
thought it was a great thing. Along with the other link I put in there. Have you guys ever done Personal Capital?
I've heard of it, but no.
Personal Capital is kind of a neat little thing. I actually use it. I love it. I'm trying to get the wife to use it a little bit more so she can keep track of things. But when you log into the site, you can actually watch, like, I just purchased my house. So I have my mortgage logged into this. And then I have one of the sites that does your the digital evaluation of your house to tell you how much it's worth. So I can tell, okay, my mortgage is this much, but the house value is this much. And it keeps track of that for me. It's kind of a neat little tool. If you're not using it, considering it's free, you should.
And this is the point where I will say that if you're worried about these companies having your financial information, it's 2016. It's time to get over that. It just is.
Yeah, the fact is, this information is already online anyway. It's not like there's a big paper file sitting in somebody's office saying we can't put this anywhere online until this person signs up. No, your bank already has this information on the internet. I mean, granted, it's a private secure cloud, and we know how awesome security is from the last few weeks. But or you have a credit card. So all of this information is already out there anyway. I mean, granted, you're putting it in another place, and so it is technically more vulnerable now, but unfortunately, you're already at risk whether you sign up or not, because your information's already out there.
Yeah. And Chris, you were talking about I'm shifting gears a little bit. You were talking about your digging out of the debt hole, and I was talking about getting to the end of the month before you get to into your money before you get to the end of your month. What I did early on, and I'm not saying this is good advice, I'm saying it's what worked for my family, was, since we were already in debt, and it's similar to what people like Dave Ramsey recommend. Since you're already in debt anyway, stop making big payments to a credit card company, make minimum payments, and take what you would make and pay yourself first. Build a baby savings account of, at least so that at the end of the month you got $1,000 left over. And if you have to pay minimum amounts and accrue the interest to do that, it's worthwhile. Because if you don't, you always end up out of money before you end up out of month, and you end up borrowing more money. So put everything on hold for as long as it takes to build up your emergency fund, is what Dave Ramsey calls it. I just called it, cash in the bank. And I wanted a full month in the bank, so that I could not have any income for a month and still be able to make my payments. Now, my payments being minimum credit card payments, right? So for that amount of time that it took, we're increasing our debt. And I think it's important that you have to recognize, just like when you're remodeling a house, before you can make it beautiful, you have to make a mess. And so for a short time, we increased our debt so that we could also increase our liquid capital. And most people don't have liquid capital, and that's what you run into. And so you're scrimping and you're saving, and you're putting everything you got. You're sending $300 to this credit card to try to get it paid off, and then you run over a tire iron in the road, and you need a new set of tires, and that's $400, and now you're negative. And so you have to be able to ride through these bumps. And so that's the way we did it, and we built up that cash capital, and then it allowed us to really attack the debt. Like all Americans, we got in debt early because we were stupid, and then we got out of debt. And it was the most amazing thing after we finally were out of debt, when I had a paycheck that was all mine. It didn't already belong to other people. It's an amazing thing, and it took a long time to get there. You got to be willing to do it. But anyway, that's a little advice there. That's not digital, right? We're not talking about the modern thing, but I think there are people listening to this podcast that are all over the spectrum, and there's some kids out there who are just starting out. First, avoid debt at all cost, because it's never worth it. It's never worth it. You go out, you take your woman out for your special anniversary dinner, and you slap it on that credit card. 10 years later, you're still paying for that steak. It's not worth it.
Yep. Avoid credit cards if you can, but if you are going to use them, make sure you're using smart credit cards. You're being smarter about it.
Yeah.
For me, we've just now started getting out of the hole. We actually were repairing credit for a couple of years, but we did it a little bit different, Mark. What we ended up doing is we did minimum payments to all of the bills, but mass payments then on a single bill to kill it.
Which is exactly the right thing to do after you have your emergency fund.
Right. See, we avoided the emergency fund because we were trying to get our credit cleaned up as fast as we could, because we were trying to then capitalize on a buyer's market for a house before it switched. Granted, we mistimed it and ended up not hitting I can't think of the word, the pinnacle point of purchasing time by about 2 months, but that's okay. We ended up getting things where we needed to be in order to do what we wanted it to do. And me and the wife always have a 6-month plan, a 1-year plan, and an 18-month plan. So that way we have things to, we're planning for bad things to happen before they happen. It's similar to your emergency fund, Mark, but on the same note, it's not. We don't have surplus in the bank. We have exactly what we know we need to have in the bank for this time period. So when we go to do our vacations, we know we have to have $15,000 in the bank in order to do a vacation. So we have steps in place that we have that money in a nest egg that's occurring. And for those that are looking for a good bank with a good insurance or interest rate for savings, Ally is at 1%, so they're great for short-term investments or long-term investments, at least so far that I've found. So we use that savings account because it doesn't penalize us for putting money into it, but it does penalize if you pull money out of it more than 4 times in a month. So that's an incentive then to not pull money out until you need it. So just some of my thoughts on what we did. There's a couple other websites that I forgot to put in the list for checking interest rates. Have you guys run across any of them for seeing how your bank or a bank that you're prospecting to move to has rates?
I think that the current economic crisis makes, or climate, not crisis, makes that a moot point, because you're looking between 0.02% and 0.04%. When banks actually start charging or paying interest, I'll start looking at things like that. Seth,
Well,
what were your thoughts earlier?
yeah, well, I mean, one, I have an online only savings account from Discover, and I get the 0.95 because my brick and mortar bank that I use for day-to-day stuff, it pays that crappy percent. But you know, I kind of did a little bit different than you, Mark, when it came to an emergency fund. I did I made the minimum on all my bills, and of course I would round up to even numbers just to help keep the math. Paid a bunch extra on one as I slowly built up my savings. So I kind of took a modified track, because the important thing is the internet and that computer or that tablet or that smartphone isn't going to automatically make your bills go away. It's not going to automatically make you smarter. It gives you a set of tools that if you have a plan and you attack them with the tools you have, they can make your plan come to pass a lot easier. So what I did was, like I say, I kind of did the debt snowball while I was building my emergency fund. I call it my oh crap fund, because it's like, oh crap, I got to buy a tire. Oh crap, my car broke down. Oh crap, I ripped the seat on my last 2 pair of pants. So versus getting back into debt, you just take some out of your emergency fund. But I slowly built that as I paid down, and I'm still paying down my debt, and I'm still increasing my savings. So that it's, there's not necessarily a right way and a wrong way. There is a way that does it fastest, and there's a way that will pay the least amount in interest, but there's also the way that lets you sleep at night. And you have to do the way that lets you sleep at night. And because in addition to a financial cost, there's a peace of mind cost in whatever plan you're going to do with. And you can't think that, oh, it's online now, it's magic. No, you still have to have a plan, and you still have to follow through. Just these tools make it easier to do that.
Right, and which is why, when the 800-pound gorilla in the room is always mint.com, because they kind of were the biggest and most flamboyant about helping you manage your personal financing. Mint does a great job as long as all of your accounts will talk to Mint. That was a problem we ran into. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that happen, where you have accounts that some of these softwares or some of these tools won't talk to. That's highly frustrating when you're trying to find tools to help you budget. That just drives me crazy. It's 2016. Why do we still have tools that can't talk? Why do banks or accounts not talk in a current manner? That's just ridiculous.
Well, and certainly
legacy infrastructure.
Yeah, certainly if you're in a rural environment, as you are, Chris, as you are, Seth, as I was most of my life, the mom and pop brick and mortar shops do not have the capital investment nor the interest in modernizing. When 90% of their customers are farmers who make 1 or 2 deposits a year, it doesn't pay a lot. But one of the things that living in the future gives you is all these great tools that we've been talking about, and from a simple spreadsheet, right? Which the odds are your computer came with one, but if it didn't, go get a Google account and use Google Sheets. It's not as full featured, but it's fine.
Or LibreOffice,
right? It will let you identify trends, and a pivot table, or most, if you have a bank with online bank, if you don't, just do it. It really is worth the effort. Get over the fear factor. Stranger danger was from the 90s. Move on. But having a decent online bank, they will be able to show you a graph and show you by percentage you spent this much on these categories, and the categories are simple. If you spent money at a restaurant, that's dining out. Right? If you spent money on at a gas station, that's fuel. And they don't know that you bought a Clark bar at the gas station. They're making educated guesses. But it'll show you at a glance, whoa, 40% of my income is going to this to eating out. And as ridiculous as that may sound, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that people are at that number, at 40%. They're spending as much on eating out as they are on housing. So it can reveal patterns that you didn't know were there. And I think that's, Chris and Seth have both alluded to it. The most important thing is having a plan, knowing where you are, knowing your current state. And we live in a time right now where it's never been easier to know your current state in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And you have to. If you're not, you're being reactive. And if anyone knows reactive people or when you react to something, you always overreact. There is no such thing as people that react correctly, because it's never a correctly reaction. It's always a knee jerk. I always bring up the idea, oh my God, my kid was looking at porn, so we got to block all the porn. That's an overreaction to a small problem that could just be something that, hey, let's talk about it. It's a parenting moment. Or that was a really bad place to go with that one.
It really was.
But that's the idea. Instead of reacting to things, you need to be proactive, and it's hard. Being proactive is painful, but it's short-term pain with long-time happiness. So.
And Chris, you've mentioned a couple of times now your credit, getting your credit up and your credit worthiness. I'm not a big believer in the credit score, but unfortunately, anybody you want to borrow money from is.
Yep.
And one of the reasons that I don't care much about the credit score is I don't borrow money if I can avoid it. I'm going to buy a house at some point when I ever sell the one that I'm trying to get rid of in Texas. So at that point, my credit is going to matter. When I went to rent this house, my credit mattered because the really a credit score is how well you maintain your debt. Are you going to pay back what you borrowed?
Exactly.
It doesn't say anything about you as a person, about your quality of your character. It just says that, does this person pay back what he owes? And there's lots of great sites. CreditKarma.com. Seth has mentioned it before. I use it. It's set up by the credit card companies, and you go there and they run your credit card and you credit score, and you can know in a moment. Anywhere between 300 and 850, right, is the limit. And if you're at 700 or above, you're pretty good. If you're in the 800 category, you're golden. You could pretty much get whatever you want.
Right.
And that just means that on paper, you're a person who takes care of business. And that's what people want. So if they're going to sell you a house, if they're going to go into a contractual agreement with you for 30 years, they want to make sure that you're a person that has a history of taking care of business. So if you don't know what your credit score is, it's probably a good idea to check that out. And a site like Credit Karma will do that at no cost and at no risk.
Let's back up for a second,
okay,
because there's a misconception that you have one credit score.
That's true.
And that's the only credit score you have. Every credit monitoring service has their own score, and then there's also something called FICO that the Fair Isaac Corporation does. But even then, there's no one FICO score. There's a list of criteria, and depending on who you're approaching, they look at certain things more than others. So if you're going to buy a car, they're going to look at different credit metrics than if you're going to buy a house or if you're going to open up a credit card. So you can go to Credit Karma and let's say, for example, your Credit Karma score shows 750. But then you go to FICO and you sign up for their trial and it shows 770. You say, well, they're not the same. Well, of course, because they're measuring different things, but the things that it takes to raise one of your scores will also raise the other score. Not having a ton of debt, like if you have the ability to have $10,000 in debt and you're using 9,900 of it, that shows you're a very bad risk of almost defaulting. Whereas if you have the ability to have 100,000 and you're only using 9,900, well, they're show, hey, he has great credit because he doesn't need to access what he has. So, and credit score is a big deal because You could have a job making $50,000 a year, and this person next to you could have a job making $50,000 a year, but because their score is 825, they got a 0% interest rate. Because your credit score is 600, you paid a 6% interest rate. So because your credit score is lower, it's costing you money because people don't want to risk lending to you. So using a site like Credit Karma, and you can go there and research, and they do a much better job of explaining than what we can do on the show, of what it takes to influence the credit scores and what factors are more important. You can see those, and unless you get a windfall of money, you're not going to raise your credit score 400 points in one day. But you can 5 months this month, 10 points that month, and then the next thing you know, over the course of a year or two, you've moved up several levels of credit. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of give a brief overview of that.
About 20 years ago, right around that, my wife's mother died and left us a small amount of money, not a lot. And we took that money and we paid off some outstanding debts, and it actually lowered our credit rating, because what that said was we got into trouble. And when we had a lump sum of money, we paid it off, and it indicates that you didn't have a plan. It actually would have been better to have made the best way to have a good credit rating is pay your bills. Don't fall for these people who say we'll fix your credit by jacking up, taking out loans so that you can build your credit. That may have been true actually when I was a kid. You got to go to a bank and you got to open an account. And you got to have something just to get on the books, right? When I was 16, I opened 2 accounts at 2 banks. I took a loan from one bank and opened a savings account at another, and put the loan in that, and paid the loan back from the savings account, and the interest rates were such that I lost a little bit of money, but it established my credit. It showed me as a person. I don't know that you really need to do that anymore. That was back in a day when not everybody reported everywhere. But the thing you need to do to fix your credit, or to build your credit, or to establish your credit, is pay your bills. Just pay your bills. That's all it takes. If somebody calls you and says we have a way to fix your credit, if what they're saying is anything other than pay your bills, they're a scam artist.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, we kind of went way far afield of what the notes say to talk about, but I'm down with that. That's good. So I'm looking for the next thing. I feel that we need to end this, but there's something that we didn't say. Take control of your finances, and take advantage of the modern tools. If you're still doing things on paper, that's not the best way to do it. It just isn't. We live in a world where there are better things to do it. For example, if somebody, Chris, gets mad at you and hands you a check, because he wants you to go through the difficulty of that. If you don't have a good online bank, a national online bank most likely, you're going to have to work in a trip to the bank at some point to deposit that. You could fill out a deposit slip and drop it in the night box, but at some point you're gonna have to go to the bank. If you're living the Vita modern, like I am, you pull out your phone, you snap a picture of that, and it's deposited, and you throw the check in the trash. So that for example it cost me nothing. It's already part of my banking, and it overrides Chris's attempt at snookering me, because I can just take a picture of it and say, nah.
It does. But you still had to take the steps to take that picture. It wasn't an electric It wasn't a fully electric transaction.
And this is something I realized not too long ago. Whenever people who think, well, it's on the internet and there's hackers out there, and you hear about all these data breaches, but think about this for a second. When you write a check and hand it to somebody, you provided them your bank's name, your account number, and your signature.
Your address, your phone number, your driver's license number.
So which is more secure, a hashed transaction on the internet, or providing somebody every bit of information they need to know to impersonate you? So, that's just tinfoil hat is good, and everybody should have at least a tinfoil visor, but sometimes you need to, actually raise your head out of the sand and look around and see what is.
Okay, I'm going to draw the conversation to a close, give you guys one chance to have one final thought. Chris, go. Final thought.
Final thought. Have a plan. Make sure you follow said plan. And Seth?
Well, One of the ways you can game. Well, no, this is a whole new conversation. So we'll save that for another day. But no, plans are good. You should have them. I would say, you don't want to run your household on a paper budget, but taking the time to set up a paper budget will really teach you what these tools can do for you. I'm not saying, run a checkbook register. I'm not saying pull out, the 2-line entry journaling and all that kind of stuff. But you need to know, and you need to know about your money, because if you don't care about your money, nobody else is going to care either.
Amen.
There you go.
Just a quick story that will encapsulate my final thoughts on modern life. So 3.5 years ago, I moved to Atlanta. My wife was still back in Texas. I had to find a house, rent a house, get a lease, do all that sort of stuff. That requires paperwork to be signed. There are still things that require a ink on paper signature, and often renting a house, doing a lease agreement is one of those things. That wasn't going to work for me. My wife didn't have ready access to a fax machine. Who does anymore? So I had the mortgage company send me the contract in a PDF format. Not unusual. Anybody will do that. I had my wife sign the back of an envelope, snap a picture of it, and text it to me. I then signed the back of an envelope, snapped a picture of it, and uploaded it to my computer. I then opened the PDF in GIMP, which will allow you to edit PDFs. I dropped in her signature, and because people get cranky about it, if it's in black ink, I color corrected it to blue, because blue ink on contracts is what's considered proper. I then mixed it, the thing, sized it right so it fit on the line. I cut out the B and the C for the spots where they needed initials, and I put those on the blanks. And then I did the same thing for me, and I emailed that back. And I did all of this actually while tethered to my phone at a place, because I didn't have internet access. And so that's living the Vita modern, when you can do that sort of stuff. There are always ways around, but you have to embrace the technology.
There you go. That's the only way.
Cool.
That's a good workaround. That's a pretty impressive, Mark. That's some good thinking there.
And now, in fact, the management company has stepped up the last couple of years when we've renewed the leases. They've used a service that allows you to e-sign. And so they send me a special formatted PDF that I can e-sign and send it back. And the e-sign is literally just a handwriting script writing my name on it. It looks nothing like me, but it's got my time and date where I did that. So the tools are out there. Everybody's recognizing that the days of writing, putting pen on paper. If I ever have to put a pen on a piece of paper, I have failed. My goal in life is to never write anything down ever again. Now, very occasionally, I will use a Post-it note, usually when I'm trying to transfer information to someone else. In fact, 3 years ago, when I got my new job, it's just sort of standard issue. Here's your stapler. Here's your thing. Here's a stack of Post-it notes. Of the stack of Post-it notes, I have used the same pad of Post-it notes since I moved there. I'm still on the first one. In 3.5 years of working there, I have not done 50 or so notes ever in that amount of time. And so, as a joke now, because when we go to meetings and they try to hand me a paper agenda, I hold up my phone. No, it was emailed. I've got that. So I don't do paper. As a joke now, every Christmas or birthday, the whole team gives me Post-it notes. So I now have a 17-year supply of Post-it notes in my office.
That's funny.
Awesome.
And that's actually something that's a good sign that you're doing things more efficiently, in my opinion, because we just started in my current job. We just started using OneNote, and I never knew OneNote existed or what it was actually used for, because I've never used it before until just recently. And man, that is like brand new butter for me. I love that app.
Yeah, I like Google Keep because it's OneNote everywhere. It's on the web. It's on my phone. It's everywhere.
Which is why I use it personally, but I can't use that for company stuff because they say no.
Yeah, my company has not yet blocked keep.google.com. They probably will as the day after this comes out. I can't get to Google Docs, but for the moment, I can get to that website.
Yeah, I can't get to anything.
I was a big Evernote user, and it crushed me when I went to work there and found that Evernote was blocked. I was like, what? How? What? How can you do this to me? It was like they had just amputated my left arm. But I managed to soldier on. All right, let's do
Google Keep.
a couple of news stories, just because we can. Steam is pretty much the only game in town on Linux, but at least they're growing.
That's right.
Yes, they are up to between 1,800 and 1,900 games that they offer on Linux, and not just fire off wine and get your game in, but actual Linux support for the games. So they're growing, and since their Steam OS is Linux, it's kind of a good thing that they're increasing their number. So they're not quite and anyway, there's a thing, if you sort by some ways it shows 1,800, if you sort by some it's 1,900, so it looks like they're in the process of releasing more and more. So Linux is not dead for gaming, at least not if you ask Steam.
No, and actually the Steam client in Linux, in my opinion, works a lot better than the Windows client does when it comes to staying or being, because they have things that they run in the background while you're playing your game called the Steam layer. A lot of times I end up with, in Windows, when I was playing games in Windows, it would pop up when I didn't want it to, because the key bindings couldn't be changed. Well, in Linux, you can change the key bindings. So it's kind of a nice little thing that you can tinker with. So I don't know, I really love my Linux box when I go to gaming, and it's impressive to see more and more AAA titles natively being released for Linux through Steam.
And if you want more Linux gaming stuff and you don't mind swearing that would make a sailor blush, visit our friends over at linuxgamecast.com. They cover this stuff every week in great detail. And in a place that just really doesn't belong anywhere, Facebook and Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, want to block you from selling a gun to another Facebook user via Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're a gun dealer. So, but yeah, I guess, I mean, you can't cry free speech, freedom of speech, blah blah blah, because this is a company choosing how they want to do business. I don't have a problem with that aspect of it, but at the same time, it makes a very, and this kind of makes you think, is the reason I think it's political because I disagree with the view, whereas before I didn't think they were political because I didn't care because they were doing what I didn't mind. Even though I've never bought a gun on Facebook and I don't plan to buy a gun on Facebook or sell one, I find myself thinking Facebook shouldn't be doing this. But at the same time, I guess that means I don't love children and the terrorists will win or something like that.
It's Facebook moving more and more down the line of censoring what you can do there. At first, they were very loose about that, and lately they've been tightening the reins on what you can and can't do. So like for example, they've had a long time no boobs policy, right? If you slip a nip into a picture, make it. And that made the Leche League people all mad because you couldn't show breastfeeding pictures, whatever. That Facebook has had trouble throughout the years about not allowing people to say whatever they want or show whatever they want. And it's, as Seth said, it's their right, it's their platform, they can do what they want. But this is interesting to me because it's not something that is public necessarily. So they're saying that they will interfere with person-to-person private communications.
Well, no, it said they wouldn't scan the Facebook messages. So this is mainly post on like the for
posting a
groups.
picture of a gun.
Yeah, and saying, for example, the county I live has a buy-sell club, and it's got several thousand members. I'm sure every county does now. But I couldn't go on there and say, for sale, used howitzer, only fired once, $4,000 OBO. They would block that now unless I was a licensed howitzer dealer.
And it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting that's a stake they've decided to plant in the ground. They didn't seem to matter. There's not an anti-bullying policy on Facebook, but there is an anti-gun policy.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how that has all been played out. I was watching a YouTube guy that was trying to go through the whole gun show loophole to buy a gun without a background check. That doesn't exist, and it hasn't existed for a while. So it's interesting to see that there's still people out there that think that you can just go out and buy a gun without a check anymore. It's next to impossible, except for the private person-to-person sale of a pistol or a handgun. So
yeah. So just because I wanted to make sure I was right about that, I went to the Facebook Health Center and typed in, "What do I do if I'm being bullied?" Their advice is unfriend the person, block the person, and report anything that is abusive that they post. So there is a policy against abusiveness, but I personally have never seen a post taken down because it was offensive. I guess there's a difference between offensive and abusive. But that's just, there are things that they've decided to crack down on and things that they hadn't. And if you don't do anything, you're 4chan. And
Yeah.
if you got to draw the line somewhere, and you're going to make somebody mad along the way. But it's interesting. Not I don't say that in a interesting. It truly does interest me that that's one of the ways they decided to go. Legal gun sales between private citizens is not okay with Facebook.
Yeah. So
that's their right as a site to control that. So
yeah,
it's interesting to see that they've started that now, because that's a hot topic for the presidential debates. So interesting.
Well, something will, and the sad part is it becomes almost a de facto law, because you want to block something from public for the quote-unquote good of society, but people think, well, because Facebook blocked it, it must be illegal, therefore it shouldn't be done at all. Now, I'm not saying that has happened yet, because obviously they're just starting this, but when you remove, it's hard, because if you remove something for the good of the people, it's for the children. We don't want the terrorists to win. I know, Jesus won't bless you if you don't repost what I'm saying on your Twitter feed at least 3 times in the next 7 days. But we have to be careful, because we want to push these things out of the common place where people meet, and therefore, because they were pushed out, people will assume, oh, well, nobody does that here, it must be illegal. So I think something like that could happen. Who knows? Maybe I'm just trying to. That's my good conspiracy theory for the week.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. The community standard becomes stronger than law. And for most people, not most, but for many people, Facebook is their primary community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can pretend like you interact with people and still be a private, reclusive person. So not that I have experience with that.
So in our attempt to have a short show this week, we're now at just under an hour and a half. So tell us what happened this week in history.
Okay, I wanted to. This happened February the 1st, 1991. Sun Microsystems starts Java technology. And these 3 people of Sun Microsystems start to develop Java technology. It grew out of a Sun project in embedded controllers called Star 7. And they focused on graphic systems, programming language ideas, and business development. That happened this week in history in 1991. So Java's been around. It doesn't pre-net internet connectivity, but it kind of really predates the web.
Yeah, and as much maligned as Java is today, the web would not be where it is now had it not been for Java.
Yep.
Much like labor unions, it served its time, and now it needs to go away. Somebody's going to write me an email about that.
I'm sure they will.
All right, so this is how I tell you how you can write me an email and tell me what a stupid thing that was I just said. Go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. That will pop up a form there that you can fill out after answering the world's easiest CAPTCHA, and that will send an email nicely formatted that gets priority in my inbox. Or you can send me an email to GeekRant at elementop.com. That goes to all 3 of us, lest you think I am censoring your mail to the other guys. Or you can call 559-IM-OP, leave a recorded voicemail there on our Google Voice account, and we'll play it on the air. Even if it's stupid, probably more if it's stupid. We haven't actually had somebody just say something totally stupid, but the odds are that would get played more often so that we could laugh at you. Be
Yeah,
great.
could
Try
be.
it and see. So as I've said many times before, we are listener created content in so many ways. This was an experiment for us. This whole month here is an experiment. We're going to try to do something new and different in having these themes. I don't know that we're going to do a theme every month, but we're going to have theme months, and this is our first one. Let us know what you think. Of course, we are not professionals. Do not invest based on our advice, because you may lose all your money, and we're not going to jail with you over it. But tell us what you think. Let us know if we're on the right track. If you think we should never do this again, that's fine too. We want to hear that. So elementop.com is your place to do that. The Zcast app, now called Castback, is in the Play Store. You can find a link to it on our website, or just search the Play Store for either Zcast or Castback. You'll find it either way. I encourage you to use that. That is becoming the primary way that I would like people to interact with us right there on the show, because what's cool about that is I can click the button and listen to what you were listening to. So if you leave a non sequitur or something that I don't follow, I can go back and hear the exact audio you were listening to when you said that. It's great. So check it out. The Castback app lets you talk to us in real time ish. So thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you listening to the show. We appreciate you telling other people about it. Do us a favor. Go give us a rating and review in whatever your favorite podcast directory is. And if you've already done that before, just create a new account and do it again. That's fine. Whatever it takes to boost our numbers. Chris, Seth, thank you for being the best host I could afford on what I pay you, which at this point is nothing. And listener, thank you for being a great listener. And we'll see you next time, because that ends this episode of the Geek Rant.
Bye, everyone.
Later.
All right, we did pick up one viewer somewhere along the line. Hi, one live viewer. Thanks for hanging out with us. I'm cutting you off now. Bye.
So did you